Draft and Calling podcast. I am your host, Christine Marie, and I am incredibly privileged to be here with Tom Layne, former baseball player, NBL player, pitcher, I might add, and top vice president at CNC Foundations, which serves ground improvement for multiple top GCs around the nation. And he has come in and completely revamped the business development side. And so I'm so excited for him to be coming in to talk to us today, not just about B2B relationship building, but also B2C environments and how residential companies could really be bringing in business development as a strategic tactic for business growth and development in that regard. So Tom, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's fun. For every single one of these conversations, there's a bio that's prepped, and we really are digging into the guest beforehand. But we've been working together for the last couple of years, and it's just been such a privilege to know you on a personal level as well as in a business capacity, and what you've done leading up to your work at CNC Foundations is so unique, and it's allowed for you to have this unique positioning to look at the organization and come in with a fresh perspective. When you grow up in the trades and that's been your entire career, sometimes it's hard to think outside the box and be innovative, truly innovative and creative with business development and new revenue sources and streams of income. So I'd love for you to give some backstory and just kind of set the stage of who you have been in your past life before coming into CNC, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in St. Louis, still live here, married, wife Megan, she's a doctor, a dentist. Got 3 beautiful kids, 2 girls and a son. Son's a terrorist, so trying to navigate that. But so busy parts of life. No, outside of that, I kind of had an interesting path to where I am today. Was drafted in 2007 by the Diamondbacks as a senior sign. Basically got a plane ticket and a little bit of cash in the pocket and said, go get them. After bouncing around the minor leagues for 5.5 years, was actually at the end of my career, which is what I thought was the end. I was in Corpus Christi, Texas in AA, ready to wash it all down and be done with baseball. And the gentleman who was in the bullpen there talked me off the ledge and made a transition from a starting role to a bullpen role. And that caught fire and things went really well. And I got called up later that summer. My first year in the big leagues was 2012, and then was up and down for 13, was pretty steady there, 14, 15, 16, and parts of 17 with the Padres, the Red Sox, and the Yankees. And then that was pretty much it on a career standpoint. Tried to make it back with St. Louis at the end of my career because I live in St. Louis. So that was kind of a childhood dream, is to play for the Cardinals. But it wasn't in the cards, so, so be it. But there's a lot of life lessons I learned along the way. I was not one of those gifted guys that could roll out of bed and throw 95 miles an hour, just reeking of all this God-given talent. I had to work very hard for what I had. My routine and my discipline, everything from my meals to my sleep to, it didn't matter what it was. My preparation had to be so on point to even be relevant at that level. So it was hard, but it taught me a lot of big life lessons on discipline and being process oriented and having the right mindset. So coupled with that, I get done with baseball, took a year off, and was actually queued up to go work for Stryker Med. Was at the final rounds of interviews, which their interview process is fairly labor intensive for those of you that know about it. But on the 6th interview was literally the day after the country shut down for COVID. So they went on a hiring freeze.
Wow.
Which spurred a phone call to the current owner of the company I work for now through a mutual friend. And I had no idea he was actually the owner of the company when I called him. So a little humility there. I thought he just worked at CNC. I didn't know that he was the owner and operator of it. That parlayed into an inside sales job and then an outside sales job and then a promotion to regional manager and director. And then eventually January of 25 got promoted to VP. So kind of saw the different stops along the way, got to learn it from the inside out. But to be very candid on kind of what I've done with CNC, the ownership group at some point came to me in mid 2020, late 2022-ish into 23, and had asked me what I would do different. And I said, we need to blow it up. And so we blew up the sales department and business development group and got rid of a bunch of people, but then also rebuilt with better, higher expectation type people. And, that process there's a lot that goes into that process, but the high level bird's eye view is just clean out the bad, bring in the new, better, raise standards. That it has turned out to be very successful for the company.
So good. There are a couple core tenets that you talked about that I just want to pull out here, because the preparation and including the discipline really being able to learn. I think of it as principles and then turning principles into practice, because to talk about the principle of discipline all sounds well and good, especially for leaders. We hear discipline all the time. Jocko Willink says discipline is a pathway to freedom. But what does it look like in practice? And so I'd love for, before we kind of dive into the CNC aspect on what you did on the business development side and how you blew it up, because I love that. I'd love to hear how the principle of discipline, what did that look like in the world of baseball? But then how does that still translate into your life today? How does that practice just change form?
Yeah. So when I was in baseball, I guess I was about double A when they started hitting me what they called my three big indicators, which now in the sales world are just KPIs. I didn't know that's what that was when I was playing baseball. But for me, it was, as a reliever, it was first pitch strikes. First two of the three pitches I throw needed to be a strike, and then lead off batter out for every inning I started. If I could meet those three metrics on a daily basis in each outing, I'd look back at the end of the year and I'd have a 1 to a 2 ERA, which is a very successful year for a reliever. And so I realized, okay, if I just focus on each pitch and not focus on the ERA at the end of a 6-month long season, I'm not going to throw a pitch on opening day that's going to get me the numbers I want at the end of the year. So I got to focus on the things that I can control, and I have to be extremely diligent in making sure I can manage those. Well, what allows me to do that? So from a baseball's perspective, it's going to bed at a decent time, not staying up late and burn the candle at both ends. It's eating right. It's exercising right. You get to professional baseball, they don't hold your hand anymore. They don't say, hey, stretches at 3:00. Make sure you get your lifting in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're responsible for doing that on your own. And so it requires you to be a true professional and own your career. You have the most benefit because you're going to make the big financial leap when you do get to the big leagues. So if you're going to make all the money and get all the glory, you need to be the one that champions that cause. And so with me, I learned the hard way. I made some decisions leading into not only my college career, but even as a draft person. Yeah, everybody goes out and has a few drinks, but I learned very quickly that I can't perform because I was never extremely gifted. I had to make sure that all the things I could do to put myself in that advantage was just getting me to even for everybody else. So I had to be even more diligent. And so the discipline for me was literally everything: was eat, sleep, drink, baseball, and what I had to do to be productive that day. Because I cared, and so I just focused on the process and made sure that I did the process that I had laid out every day. Didn't skip a beat. I was basically a slave to my routine and my process. And when I got to a higher level, I realized most people are that way in the game. They understand the bite-sized chunks they take out every day, all the way down to the food they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. I mean, it sounds silly, but there's parts of my career where for 3 months straight, because things were rolling good, I would eat the exact same thing for breakfast every day. And so all it's superstition, but it's also part of the process and staying disciplined for something that's working. And then there's a mental side of the game, which was really the flip for me that changed being able to play in the big leagues and then actually staying in the big leagues. Anybody can be there on their good day, but who can be there on their average day? And that's a mental mindset that needs to be maintained. To parlay that into, the CNC side, when we kind of blew up the sales department, the business development department, I looked for individuals that were process oriented, understood discipline, had a little bit of some adversity in their prior life, whatever they were doing, and had to fight through it, understand what it's like to be in the trenches and actually work for something that's worth it. And so that's what I've looked for. And there's always that X factor. You can just kind of get a feel on people. Our process for hiring is rather labor intensive. I've kind of stolen that from some other people in the industry, but there's a lot of interviews that take place. And basically, if things are going positive and they're moving in a positive direction, that person's probably going to get an offer from us at the end of the day. But if they're going the opposite direction, it's like as soon as you start to feel any hesitation, it's an immediate no, because that's just what they're showing you on the first or second or third date. Imagine what the marriage looks like long term. So the discipline part of the hiring process, I adhere to that extremely tight. If there's any negativity, even from some of my peers that I trust, hey, I just don't know, I'm on the fence, we move on. Everybody needs to be bought in.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. The part that I really, really appreciate is when it's going well, don't change it. And I don't think that that's superstition. I think it's keep rinsing and repeating what is already great. There's a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And
Mhm.
I've been I've been enjoying that book recently. It's my second read of it. And one of the core tenets is do not change what's working. What got you to good, don't stop doing that as you pursue greatness. And so it's like adding in these core pillars into our routines and our habits. You know, you're talking about effectively the habits of being a good baseball player. There's so many habits of what constitutes being a good CEO, and showing up and being great at what you do. And when you start raising up in the ranks, it's interesting because when I study the habits and behaviors of these top performers, man, are they rigid. Every single morning looks the same. Every single evening looks the same. And so there's
Mhm.
a habituation that, frankly, I'm wondering from your perspective of those who have failed, what is the mindset that prevents them from being willing to engage in the slow, monotonous habit that leads to greatness?
What I've seen from a lot of people from a mindset standpoint, it's the self doubt, it's the lack of personal confidence. Like that's in our industry now, that's the biggest thing. And even when I was playing baseball, that's the mental side of the game that I was telling you about that allowed me to get to the big leagues and stay. Whenever I'd put together a good run in baseball, and I even see it now with some of my BDMs, whenever they have a good month or two, they almost view it like, okay, when are the wheels going to come off? When is that 2 ERA going to blow into a 6 because I go out and give up 5 runs and only get 1 out? And when is that? I'm on a hot run for a month. I've sold whatever from a business development standpoint. I've added $2 million to the revenue stream. When is that going to fall off? I'm going to hit a dry spell. There's always that fear of what's coming tomorrow that gets released and let go when the preparation is done correctly. And that's the part where you have to be disciplined in your process, because if you prepare correctly, you
So
can
good.
control the outcome more. It's not so much on luck anymore, right? Try to take luck out of it. Just try to be as prepared as you can be, which is, you got to do the groundwork to get to where you're at. And so I think for most people, it's not being able to turn those negative thought processes off from a mindset standpoint and just say, look, I know every day if I come take a bite out of this elephant,
Yeah.
eventually in time, the elephant's going to be gobbled up and gone. And that's how I view life. And that's how I view, any challenging thing that hits, whether it's a, loved one in the hospital, some bad things going. It doesn't matter what it is in life. If you focus on the little things that you can manage on a daily basis, the body of work, whether be it a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years later, will eventually yield the results. You don't build a house in a day. You got to build it in a process.
The focus on the process, I just want to call out, we've got C. Martin Love on the live chat here, and he just called out a few things that I want to get your feedback on, Tom, before we move into kind of the next phase of what we did to dismantle the sales department and then rebuild it. He says, break down overwhelming situations into tiny actionable steps to build momentum and foster a sense of empowerment. And I love that because it speaks to the process of habit building. It's just tiny repeatable actions, because to your point of that big elephant, it's so overwhelming, and to lack of confidence. Man, that's a scary thing. Like, I can't imagine being on the pitcher's mound with thousands I mean, all the people in the stadium, much less all the television pressure. That's talk about mental fortitude and knowing, like, I've put in the discipline to prepare. Like, discipline is preparation.
Right. So an interesting fact I don't share very often, but I had one particular coach, and I'll save his name because I don't want him to, in case he's still in baseball. I haven't searched him out. I don't want him to get in trouble for this one in case it were to get back. But he sat me down and he said, "Listen, the trick to getting and staying in the big leagues is you have to stop caring." And I initially, like, it didn't settle well with me because I'm like, "What are you talking about? I've worked my entire life to get to this point. I care." He's like, "No, when you care is when you don't throw free and easy and you pull the ball over the middle of the plate and that one gets hit out of the park. When you care, you try to hit the corner and you miss off the corner before you know it, you're 3-0. And so if you approach everything from this, I'm bigger than this moment, not from a conceited or arrogance standpoint, but just putting yourself in a position to be successful. If you can treat everything in life like that and don't be so connected to it that you essentially choke, you're going to get the best version of yourself going after it. And that's what he basically instilled in me from the mental process. That was the part that allowed me to put together 4.5 years, 3.5, 4.5 years, whatever it was, when I had no business being in the big leagues. I wasn't gifted enough.
And frankly, this is what I love about your story, Tom, though, is that the discipline and preparation allowed for you to do that. I
100%.
mean, yeah, the gifting's great, and it allowed for you to do something that literally is a dream, and it proves that it's possible if we apply ourselves. And so to that point, it's, man, okay, there's so much more possibility in life if we're willing to do the work. And so then that comes back always to the question of, what do you really want? Like at the
Right.
core of it, it's always that, do you want it bad enough? And then
Mhm.
are you willing to put in the work? C. Martin, I love what you put here in the chat. You said mentally separating your self-worth from whether a deal closes, from whether you actually hit it out of the park. So it really is the detachment, the
Yes.
separation. So good.
Yes.
And I've been reading the book Letting Go by David Hawkins. I've been reading it for months now because it's so good. I like eat books, I consume them, so I take a while with each book, but it really changes me, like at a cellular level, and letting go of the outcome, so that the process in and of itself, it's like I actually can exist from that third party perspective, so to say, because I'm
Mhm.
just doing the steps in the process rather than focusing on the outcome. So I
Yeah. So
love
many times you can't control the outcome. All you can control is the effort and energy you put into it.
yeah.
You throw a pitch down and away and it's perfect. And the guy's got out 99 times out of the first 100 he's seen that pitch. Well, he may hit that one and get a knock or hit a homer. You can't control it once the pitch leaves your hand, just like in business. All you can control is the process you have. All you can control is how you do leading up to whatever that sale is or that big close is. But at the end of the day, you never know what demons are working on the backside, the relationships that they have. So no matter how well you do, you cannot control the outcome. All you can control is the effort and energy you put in the front end.
So good.
Yeah, and that's the business development mindset. It's like all you should be doing is worried about the jobs you should be closing with these customers and clients, not the one in front of you. You put yourself in a position to win two, or if not two, three, and 4 and 5, and so forth. And if that's your mindset, typically you're thinking through the right channels.
And Tom, that approach you've really taken into about even just like the elephant, like you're encouraging the entire team of business developers, all of which you've kind of hand curated and selected, and you've completely rebuilt this team from scratch since you first started in a managerial position. You've encouraged them, like, pick your key elephants rather than shooting all these arrows out, but like really go after these core companies and these core relationships and focus on that. We're after quality, not quantity. So can you talk through what did it take? Leadership came to you a couple years ago and said, what would you do to grow this business? And you
Right.
said, I'd tear apart it,
Yeah.
the sales process.
Yeah, I said I'd blow it up. Part of that was about raising the standard because, frankly, we just had the standards were low from the prior leadership in the business development department. And when you come from a locker room where you have so many people, and there's a vivid story for me. I was in Seattle. It was a trade deadline. I was with Boston, and they just picked up a guy named Fernando Abad at the trade deadline, which meant that I was the odd man out. I was left in the bullpen getting shipped out. It worked out. I ended up going to the Yankees on a major league contract, and I got to pitch against Boston. Story for another day. But anyway, so that day when I knew I was the guy going, because you just know, I'm looking around the locker room and like really trying to soak it up because Boston was like my family. It tore my gut out when they said, "Hey, you're going to be leaving." And so to like look around and reminisce on all the things, you just realize, dang, there's so many people who are so motivated and so driven to one thing. And it's not necessarily to win the World Series, it's to be the best players and teammates as they can physically be. And as a result, you end up with a great team, people who are very motivated and driven and talented, and you win games. To take that and then try to increase that standard in the business development side, put that in and bring those people in that could understand that. Admittedly, so we've hired athletes because I think there's these life lessons you learn as part of a team, especially in athletics when you play at a higher level. A lot of them are former professional athletes. They didn't all play in the big leagues or the NHL or NFL, but they've been in some kind of minor league system or whatever that the minor league systems are for the other places. They understand that higher thing that they're fighting for that they may not always be able to grab a hold of, but they're all trudging through that. They understand what it's like to be motivated by something so big and have a mindset of, yes, I'm going to put in the extra work to be an NFL long snapper in the NFL. I'm going to put in the extra work to wrestle at a Division I school as Mizzou, right? Those people all understood that additional trait that it takes, the mindset, and they've experienced stuff that unless you know what I'm talking about, and you've been through it in life, you don't even know what you don't know. There was skepticism when I talked about the team I was going to build and what I wanted it to look like. And I was basically told, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist. And I said, step aside and watch, just give me a few years. And so I understand it, but it's because it's not their fault. They didn't know those kinds of things existed because they've never been in a locker room like that and seen that kind of team chemistry and camaraderie and all those individuals so motivated for one common task. And so that's culturally, right? You got to have that kind of culture. But at the end of the day, it comes down to simple questions. What do you want? And are you willing to do what it takes to get it? And if your mindset's right and you're that kind of person, you have a chance at CNC, 100%. And that's what we hired.
So good. What were some of the well, I'll put it bluntly. That for leadership to come to you and say that and then be willing to trust you with that, that's a massive deal. I mean, to let you to hear, even first off, we need to blow this up, that requires immense levels of what? Humility, openness, like what quality does it require in a leadership position to be able to have somebody that's relatively new? I've been doing this for 20 plus years. Somebody new is coming in. They've been here for a couple of years. I really like them. I like where their head's at, but they're telling me I need to blow up a key part. Sales is so important,
Right.
So what is that quality that the leadership possessed that allowed to even have this conversation in the first place?
Yeah. So the initial high level was yes, blow it up. Right. And then it was, the following up saying part of that was, okay, build me a strategy on how you're going to do this. I was asked if we were going to be a certain baseball team for a few years that was doing rebuilds, that was losing a lot of games. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. We're still going to contend. And so laid out a strategical plan of, okay, we're going to start transitioning this territory, this territory, this territory. And it wasn't like we dumped 7 people and just cut all that and then rebuilt. We transitioned it in time, but there was a plan laid out. It was about every 3 to 6 months we were turning people over until we got everybody rinsed out that we wanted out and all the new people in. So that's why it took 2 years to get to where we're at today. And it wasn't just a 12-month thing. Because we still had to bring revenue in the door. Ownership still had to be able to keep the lights on and keep employees. We weren't going to sacrifice the whole business off of just one department. So it was phased and it was strategic and tactical in how we did it.
And it sounds also like you were proving the concept as you went. The proof of concept is so critical. Like, okay, let's actually put this to practice in one territory and allow for it to then be replicated in other places. And I'm sure optimized as you went in the replication of it, because each territory is different with psychographics, demographics, etc.
Yeah, that's correct. And we had, in my times being a BDM, I had laid out a process. So the way it was before me was all quantity driven. Send out this many proposals. Organic, we're going to land this percentage because of our market share, so we can bank on the business being this big. I didn't subscribe to that, because everything I learned in baseball was you don't just go out and throw a 100-pitch bullpen. You go out and throw 20 pitches focused on one specific thing. It's just rifle focus versus a shotgun approach. And I was rifle focused. That's the culture I came out of with baseball, doing what I did. I mean, you don't shotgun approach a baseball season, period.
Yeah.
Very, very deliberate and very focused. And so I brought that same culture and mindset into what we do as BDMs. And so I laid out a process when I was a BDM. I tried the other way. I tried it. Frankly, I got zero traction. I wondered why I was out knocking on some random construction company's door when I have a $1 million proposal sitting in my inbox and needs to be delivered to somebody who I actually like. And I've got these other KPIs I'm told are important. No, that bird in hand is more important than the 2 in the bush. And so I just focused my attention where it needed to be. We revamped the process, got that cleaned up, and it's in pencil. So it's always changing as times change. That's probably the biggest thing I see. The biggest fight I had when I came in and started doing this wasn't so much my intent of what I wanted to do. It was trying to get the old ways of how business development was and sales were out of everybody's mind that was so burnt into them. Like, the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side, but I can show you a better, more efficient way to do it based off my own tried and true feelings of how I felt. Like, I never wanted to be sold to, ever. And so I tried to make sure I didn't do that to people.
That's awful. Who likes that?
Right. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There were some challenges, but it's good. It's good now.
Yeah. I appreciate, in terms of like, what then do you, okay, so this is the quality of the leadership to be able to possess, talking about that, but then what is the quality that you needed? And again, in the comments, viewing yourself as an equal professional consultant rather than a supplicant or subordinate. This builds equal business stature, making you a trusted advisor. I love kind of going into, and this is the delicate balance of going in and just kind of having that confidence you were talking about earlier, removing the self-doubt, moving from fear to effectively some semblance of disassociation, so that we're not coming in kind of kowtowing. We're like coming in with that level of confidence already that I actually have seen this work in other places. And I know that maybe I'm not equal to you in terms of authority in the business, but like I'm an equal professional. Look at
Mhm.
my history and how I've lived, and that level of confidence. You were talking, you mentioned not being arrogant. So I want to hear from you, Tom, on how you balance that, because the level of confidence you do hold and the entire rest of the business development managers, it has been read as arrogant by people who don't have that same level of confidence, and people
Mhm.
maybe who don't know you, where maybe they've experienced that in the past as arrogance. So how do you balance the humility and openness with also, and you and I have had this conversation before, because I really value this quality about you and your team. But how do you balance that level of confidence with humility, with making people feel like they can approach you?
Yeah, so I think one, I mean, it depends what you're talking about. You're talking about the business development side or just people that are in the office. And I try to get to know everybody, period. Whether we're in the field or in the office, I want them to always feel like they're comfortable in having conversations with me. The door is always open and truly caring about who and what they are, and not just, hey, how was your weekend? And as soon as I ask the question, I'm checked off thinking about my own weekend, right? Actually listening. And the definition of a good business development manager is just listening and hearing, not just hearing it, but truly taking what they say and remembering it, right? And having to be able to store that in that brain, and make sure that next time you see them, you're asking about their son's t-ball game or whatever. And so, not done from a reason of trying to close a sale for the next one, but because you genuinely care about people. And what I tell my team is, I don't necessarily want you guys to try to make the square peg fit in the round hole with everybody. But when you
Yeah.
find people you mesh with that you do hit it off with, generate that relationship, make it genuine, because if it's not genuine, it stinks and everybody can smell it. So don't
Yeah.
try to be distant. Don't try to be genuine when it's not organic and fluid. And so that's kind of what we push in terms of humility piece. I mean, I am who I am. My team is who they are. And until you're truly comfortable in your own skin, being yourself,
Mm,
you got to be that. And so that's part of that confidence thing. And I think there is a fine line between arrogance and confidence,
right.
but the ability to say, you know what, you're right. I screwed that up. I'm going to get it right. That helps. And in conversation, when you're talking to clients and stuff like that, it's when they screw up and they come to you hat in hand, or when you screw up, being able to come to them and say, hey, look, I messed this up.
Mm,
It they know, and they all get it, right? And so we want those kinds of things. You want people to be able to partner on jobs and not just us working for them. And to be fully transparent, there's a handful of people doing this ground improvement thing nationwide. There's thousands of general contractors.
yeah.
We are a much smaller resource, and we need all GCs. I'm not saying we don't, but there's not many people out there providing our services. And so with that being said, it's like, why put yourself below on a totem pole? We are equals.
Mm,
At the end of the day, you go home to wife and kids, or you don't, but we still go home to homes. We all still
yeah.
live in the same country, driving the same vehicles. We're all the same person. Like, could I
Right.
leave CNC and get a different job? Probably. Could you leave your company and go to a lesser job? Probably. It's like, don't treat me any different. I'm still a human being. So I give
Mm,
us.
so good. So good. And even I'm remembering what you said about really being able to let go of the outcome, because then it does allow you in each one of these cases in throwing the pitch, hoping you actually get the strikeout rather than a grand slam.
Right.
When you're going in to tell leadership how to what you think could change, and going in to close a sale, each one of those, letting go of the outcome and paying attention to the process. Is this even a good fit to begin with? Because God forbid you close a job and it goes to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
Like we'd rather not get the job. So
Right.
the letting go and then engaging with people, if you've actually let go of the outcome, I think for those people who are so tightly attached to the outcome, they might actually view it as arrogance, or view because they're like, wait, what is this weird ability that you have to be just curious and open-minded and not attached, and you're not coming from a place of fear. And
Right.
that's, I think, one of the biggest things is you're no longer coming from that position of fear to try to close the sale or land the pitch. um, Tom, quick question for you.
Yeah.
I know that we're pretty much at time here
We
for
can
all.
go. We can keep. It's up to you. I don't know how long you want to do this, but we can
Well,
go
you
as
know
long.
what? We might need to do a part two, because I actually would love to dive into the residential side
Yeah.
and how can residential teams be looking to kind of incorporate business development. I think that this is, frankly, I think business development is one of the core aspects of businesses moving forward in a world of AI. We need to be way more relational. So if you're up for doing a part two, I would love to have you back on and talk about building relationships in an AI world. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, 100%. And for the residential piece, I mean, I know you probably want to tackle that in a little bit different way, but there's definitely a need for business development in the residential world. So much of this stuff is, B2C for most residential companies, but imagine how big a company gets if, and I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but around here, when they develop 100 acres and they put 300 homes in there, somebody's getting all that earthwork and somebody's getting all that drywall and somebody's getting, those are not just all custom homes for some of
Yeah.
these mass developments. So imagine if you had a business development person talking to a big developer of residential, then working to get a deal struck. So instead of just getting one house to paint the entire house, you're getting 200 homes to paint all the homes. And so that's the business development side there, because the B2C stuff is a little bit more challenging, but that's more B2B. And I think business development makes sense on B2B stuff, which definitely is in residential. B2C is just a little bit more challenging because it's typically a one-time buyer and you won't hear from them for years.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
kind of how it is. So that's my take on it from the limited experience I have with residential.
Well, I would like to dive in if you're up for it, Tom.
Yeah.
Let's do a part two. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Tom, thank you so much for your time today. This was so good.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next time on The Craft and Calling. Until then, good luck on your business.